Thank you for joining me, whether you are here through our Facebook group or you are here through Zoom. It is good to see you. I will be watching both for questions. Hopefully I'll catch what I can. I'm really excited for today's topic because I've been hearing this question and this conversation time and time again about how can I be more future ready? How can I future proof myself? How can I make sure that I'm the one taking myself, my team, my clients, my organization into the future? So what I want to do today is I want to talk about that. How do we future ready ourselves? What does it really mean? What does it not mean, by the way? So what does it really mean? What do we maybe think it is, but it's a myth we're holding on to that's not true? And then I want to share 5 ways that you can be future ready right now. And they're actually things that we want to do and start, and behaviors and innovation lenses that we want to put on right now that are actually going to help us move into the future and be future ready. And then I want to share 3 stories of product and service businesses and the leaders in them. And I think that they're great examples of being future ready. When I share the 5, that's all going to make a lot of sense. So give me a yes if you're ready to move forward. I think it's really important that we think about future ready. And as I said, I keep getting this question from people, like, how do I think about the future, Tamara, when things are so uncertain? How do I even know what to do next when there's so much change? I mean, I was watching the news this morning, and if some of you are probably like me and have kiddos, and every day is a different decision on what's going to happen with the schools. And while that sounds maybe mildly insignificant or not a big deal, it impacts everything I do for work. It impacts all these parents, right? So it impacts everybody. It impacts all of us, regardless if we have kids or not, because it just changes the workforce and how we're all coming together. Good. Carolyn says, or Kirby says yes. Emily says yes. Excellent. So I want us to know, here's the thing I want us to kind of set the stage with. Being future ready, future proof. This is really important in times that are uncertain and in times of change. But you know what? It's also really important in the good times when you got a handle on things, when the ground isn't constantly shaking. To me, it's really just dialed up right now. So before I get into what it is and show you the slides that I put together for you, I want to talk about what it's not for a second, because I think it's easy to confuse being truly future ready with maybe being a fortune teller, maybe having a magic 8-ball and knowing where things are headed. Here's the thing, being future ready is not about being a fortune teller and being able to predict the future with 100% accuracy. I think we can all agree that that is not possible. And I've seen it time and time again where even in normal times where people were trying to kind of predict the future, and sure enough, there are pivots and adjustments and adaptations that had to happen along the way. It's not possible, it's unrealistic, and especially in times like today, trying to be the one to predict the future is gonna set you up for failure, because there are changes and uncertainties and disruptions coming at us all the time. Now, what future ready does mean is having some foresight. So it doesn't mean being a fortune teller, but it does mean having some foresight. So let me show you my slides so I can show you the 5 ways for you to be future ready right now. I'm so excited to show you this because I do think it's incredibly game changing. And I want to talk a little bit too, by the way, about the feelings of future ready versus not, because you'll know when you're in the state of future ready and when you're not. So let me know that you can share my screen. I just want to make sure I didn't screw something up by doing this. Okay, so this is when you're not future ready. This is when you are, this is the feelings you have when you are behind. You are reactive, right? You're constantly in catch-up mode, right? You're just never quite ahead. You're always just one decision, one opportunity, one task, maybe 10 tasks behind. You feel overwhelmed, right? The weight of the change and the uncertainty kind of really gets to you. You feel undervalued, perhaps at work or with your clients, your leadership, your team, probably because they recognize that you're not future ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to load up a little innovation and a little different thinking, because when you get to a place of being future ready, here's the feeling you get. You feel proactive. You feel, and by the way, what I mean by proactive is you feel in control, able to handle it. You may not always be 10 steps ahead, but you are at least in a place where your feet are under you and you're making decisions and you are proactively leading yourself and your team forward. The second one is you feel empowered. And I think that goes a little bit to control. When we are in a future ready place, when we are living that future ready every day, we feel more in control. Even when crazy out of control things are happening, as they are right now, we feel more in control. And we feel invaluable, meaning, wow, we deliver so much innovation and the ability to pivot and the ability to kind of help drive everybody to the future, that we know that what we bring is absolutely invaluable. You cannot put a price on it. It's the opposite of feeling that undervalued and overlooked. So give me a shout out in the chat bar in the comment section if this is a feeling you would rather have. We can go back to being reactive, or we can think about future ready, which is about being proactive and being powered and being invaluable. All right, let me see a little bit in the chat bar before I go on, before I share the 5 ways that we are going to future ready ourselves and just be, excuse my language, we are going to be kick you know what out there in the marketplace and in our world. All right, Emily, thank you for the yes. Okay, let's move forward. Mia says, proactive for sure, want to be 5 steps ahead of my client. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, Mia, because that's a good point. All right, so let me talk about the 5 ways that you can be future ready. And again, just to frame us up for a second, it is not about predicting the future. It's about having foresight, and it's about the ability to pivot. So let me talk about these. Number 1 is make the ability to pivot your strength. So here's the thing, we talk about pivoting as something we do when we need to. We talk about pivoting as something that happens at specific moments. It's almost a point in time exercise. If you want to be future ready, you've got to make that ability to pivot something that you do every day. I kind of equate it to watching, have you ever seen, it's usually in a movie, I've never seen it in real life, but like where water comes barreling down a mountainside and then it hits a rock, so it goes around the rock, and then it hits a cliff and it goes down the cliff, or it goes down another side, it actually just carves a whole canal for itself. That to me is what I mean by constantly being able to pivot. When those boulders and obstacles come in your way, being able in that moment to always go around them and keep moving forward. When you hit that ditch, that trap that you weren't expecting, being able to have that rope to climb yourself out of it. One of the keys to Mia, what you said about being 5 steps ahead of your client, is knowing how and when to pivot ahead of them. And Mia, because you're so good at delivering, and because you're a risk taker, right? So you're so good at that bold innovation. When we are good at constantly pivoting, when that's a strength that we have, it becomes easier to become future ready because you're ready for whatever comes. That sounded like a Dr. Seuss tongue twister, but I hope you see the point here. Pivoting is not a point in time exercise. And the way that we become good at pivoting is what all of us are doing, particularly those of you who are in the membership, in the tribe. We are filling our toolbox with ways to innovate. We are filling our mind with the mental maps we need to always be looking for the opportunities, for always be looking for the innovation, for the blue skies, for the rearranging the box. All those things that we do are what lead to pivoting. But pivoting has to be something that you think of as something that you're just simply doing all the time. And in today's world, pivoting is what allows us to be that water and keep moving and get to our point and get to that future and even create the future we're trying to create. So that keeps us from being reactive too, because we know pivoting is part of work. Pivoting is part of the project plan. The people who I see who aren't future ready, they're the ones who, once they create that plan, right? Once that plan is set, that's it. And when, that softball out of left field comes in, they kind of freeze up, or it takes them a long time to figure out how to pivot. They want to stick to the plan. What is it Mike Tyson said? Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. We've got to be used to pivoting. All right, so that's number 1. The second one is and me, I think this kind of relates to what you're saying. And yes, Kirby, this is a much more sane approach, isn't it, than always being reactive and overwhelmed. That is exhausting, and none of us can live on that. Number two is think 1 and 10 steps ahead. So here's what I mean by that. We want to be looking to the future. We want to have our lens open. We want to have our binoculars set, right, to kind of look out onto that horizon. But we want to be thinking 10 steps and 1 step. Here's why we want both. When we just think 1 step ahead, we're missing the opportunity to really be strategic. But we are grounding ourselves in what has to get done right now, and that's important. When we think 10 steps ahead, sometimes we're looking too far the forest through the trees, and things change, and how we get there has to adapt. And on the positive side, it's pushing us to the horizon. So we want to always be thinking 1 and 10 steps ahead, not either or, both. I know I've talked to a lot of people who have said, oh, well, Tamara, right now, it's 1 foot in front of the other. So I got to focus on what's right in front of me. Yes, I love bite-sized chunks. I love breaking it down, but I want to make sure that what I'm doing today is going to connect 10 steps ahead. So I'm thinking a little bit ahead of myself, right? When you lift weights, you don't look right down and you don't look way out. You actually look at this kind of like middle place to keep you focused and to keep your body in alignment. To me, that's like this. I'm looking right here where I can see close in, but I can also see far out. And Mia, when you talk about being 5 steps ahead of your clients, which I love that. I hope you tell your clients that's your goal, because that is someone I would hire right there that's their goal, is to always be ahead of 10 or 5 steps ahead of me. This is one way to do that, because you're helping them figure out what has to happen next, but where that's going to take you as well. And the other great thing about this in relation to pivoting is you think 1 step ahead and 1 step, you've got that line of sight, and then you're pivoting along the way. See that? Connecting the dots on that? Mic drop. Cracking myself up today. All right. Number 3 is keep your antennas up. This one is so important. Here's what I mean by this. There are hot spots of insight happening all around us. And if we start to really keep our antennas up and are truly paying attention to the little conversations that seem to keep bubbling up, to the trends that we seem to see happening all the time, to the conversations our colleagues, our partners, our clients are having, we'll see with foresight. Here's what I mean. Let me give you an example of this. And this isn't about predicting, but this is about foresight. I noticed, I'd say way back in March, that the conversations that my friends, colleagues, clients were having were, hey, you know what? I kind of like this work from home thing. Like, this isn't so bad. Like, I get up, I ride my Peloton, I do my work, right? And I'm not saying it's all good, but like, I kept hearing these nuggets of conversation. And then I was in this conversation with these 2 other people. One of them owns a really large real estate company, and the other one owns a catering business. And we were talking, and one of them said, you know, I just can't wait to get everybody back in the office and get back to business. Like, I just need to get everybody back into the office so we can get to 100%. And the other person at the table said, you know, it's interesting. I've been hearing all these conversations from my employees and frankly, my colleagues who are saying things like, I'm kind of enjoying this. I'm kind of liking working from home. I think I'm going to ask for flex time, just these little nuggets of conversation. He said, you know, so I think what we're going to do before, like, you know, everything kind of opens up again and we're allowed to come back, he said, I think we're going to figure out some flex plans, and maybe that'll help us save on some office space, and maybe that'll allow us to be a little bit more flexible and nimble in how we use our employees. He had his antennas up. He was paying attention. And you better believe now in August, the real estate guy who was talking about getting everybody back in the office, he tried to get everybody back, and now he's getting a lot of pushback because people want more flexibility. They've turned out there's some things that have happened that are good for them out of this, where the other one who had his antennas up actually created a flexible work plan, and they have moved forward and transitioned into this new work environment, this new workforce. All right, you all have been awfully quiet, so put in the chat bar so far what you're thinking. Okay, I want to hear it. I want to know, do you understand? Does that make sense? That kind of keeping your antennas up, just paying attention to the trends, the insights, the patterns. It's all those little moments that make you go, huh, that's interesting. I feel like this is Groundhog Day or deja vu. I keep seeing the same thing over and over again. All right, that's the 3rd one. The 4th one is be an enabler of innovation. It takes a team to win in today's environment. So we need to not only be innovators, we need to lead other people around us. If you want to future-proof yourself and be that invaluable player, the one that leads strong with innovation, not just does it themselves, but also brings it out in others, they're the ones that become valuable to the organization. I think what I have really seen in the last 4 months in particular is it's not just those that do their jobs and keeps their heads down that become valuable to the team, the organization, the clients. It's the ones that actually enable innovation in themselves and those around us. We want to be that person. Kirby said, what one entity does may benefit you on another project. Yeah, Kirby, so that's a great example of keeping your antennas up. I think that's what you're referring to, right? Look for those best practices around you. Pay attention to what other people are doing. This is part of the reason why, I love my job and I love our interaction, because I learn so much about other industries and other businesses and other leaders. And then I try to apply that to myself, right? Always have those antennas up. All right, and number 5 is be in a relationship with reality. Okay, this might be the most important one out of all of them. It is so easy, particularly when times are so insane like they are right now, to maybe deny reality, avoid it, resist it. But the truth is, right, the world is the way it is. And if we want to future-proof ourselves, we actually want to be in a deep relationship with reality. This is not, by the way, about being a pessimist or the glass is half empty or all of those. It is just having a really objective lens of, this is what's happening right now. This is where we are. This is where I am as a leader. This is where the business is. This is where our customers are. This is the new workforce, the new demands, the new expectations. This is what's happening with COVID and with social unrest. Like, all of this needs to come together. But we've got to be in a relationship with reality. It is very hard to not just get to the future, but also to create the future you're looking for if you're actually not grounded in where you are today. This is why I always call myself an opportunist and not necessarily an optimist, because I think it's more about grounding in reality, taking that reality and turning it into an opportunity. You know, we talk a lot in the tribe about rearranging the box, and that's exactly what that is, right? We got to be in a relationship with reality. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people on your team fight or deny reality. It's very hard to innovate and to future ready ourselves when we are in a fight with reality. All right, Carolyn says, what do you do when some teams, while working remotely, haven't made changes and look for ways to challenge, slow those of us who are pivoting? Oh, Carolyn, there are so many things that we can do. Okay, here's what I want you to do. So this could be a whole hour, 5 hours actually in itself. And I'm so glad you asked, because it is a really big challenge a lot of us are dealing with. Before I forget, I want you to go back into my burst of innovation on the website and look at the one, I think it's called How to Get Legacy Thinkers on Board with Change. If you type in legacy thinkers, you'll find it. And those are the people. There's another one that I want you to find that's all about overcoming the internal resistors to change and how to deal with that. So, hey, tribers who you are in the membership, pipe in. I know you got some answers here. Carolyn, here's what I'd say. The thing that I would do those things. I'd go look at those things I just talked about. But the other thing I would really think about is 2 things. I want you to take it from their perspective for a second, because I think it's easy for us to take from our perspective and to say, well, we need to pivot because, right? This is why we have to pivot. And Carolyn, I'm pretty sure you're right. Whatever it is, I'm pretty sure you're right. We do have to pivot. The thing that I think we need to think about before getting them to pivot is, what's in it for them? And making that very real and personal and tangible. And why are they resisting? Oftentimes I find a couple things. One is people resist because it feels like that change, that pivot, is being pushed onto them, and nobody likes it to be pushed onto. We all need to feel like we're a part of the journey. So perhaps the work needs to be done to take a step back and go, take a step back and say, how do I get these people on board? How do we build more trust and collaboration? And then we can pivot. Oh, Carolyn, this reminds me of something you said. I've been learning smart tactics from other industries, and the more I share with my team, the more they realize we have got to shift some of our ideas to stay relevant. Oh, that's what Mia said. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Mia, that reminds me of something that I'll talk about in a second. So Carolyn, I would take a step back and actually think about what is it that's causing the resistance? Is it the human nature of being resistant to change because I feel like it's happening to me? And we've got to overcome that, right? This is about mindset and about just getting people's lizard brains to calm down. That's a real thing. Is it about they don't see the benefit for them? Maybe to them, they see the pivot as more work, less money, more effort. They have to learn a new skill to do it. I've often found with clients that the reason they are hesitant to pivot, even by the way, Carolyn, when they know it's the right thing to do, has more to do with the fact that they see it as they have to change who they are and what they're good at and how their job is structured. And that is a really scary thing. I will tell you, and I will not say names, I don't get anybody in trouble, excuse me, but I have a few colleagues who have business managers. And those business managers have really dialed up their resistance to change in the last 4 months. And what's interesting about that, I'm just going to get totally real deal for a minute here is, excuse me, is if you think about it, they have jobs and they're getting paid. And that should be the driver to pivot, is to keep the business open, the doors open. Like the colleagues I'm talking about have gone through real shifts in their business. No joke, right? Like a lot of us, rug got pulled out from under them. And but they're business managers who should be like, yes, we need to pivot. I need to learn new skills. We need to think about this differently. They're resisting and like, but I don't know how to do that, but that's going to take more work, but that's a lot of effort. But I don't know if that's going to work. It's never been tested, right? So people who on a regular day would be really open to it are really starting to struggle. And it's because when you really dig into it, there's a massive fear around what it means for them in those pivots. Now I'm going to give you a flip side because I'm so proud of Laura, who's my business manager, who some of you have interacted with. She is phenomenal. Here, I'm just, again, I'm pulling back the curtain, I'm going to tell you. So I've had the opposite. I've got lucky. I had the opposite experience with Laura. This is not about leadership on my end. This is her internal drivers. When I started to pivot the business to our membership site and to online and everything that we had to do, because the rug got pulled out from us. Most of you I know because I was at live events for the last 10 years of my life. She started watching all the videos I was watching on Facebook, on membership sites, on online, on business strategies, like all of it, right? She just started picking up and started looking at that and started pivoting with me because she recognized that in order to get to the success we're trying to get to make the impact we want to make, we had to pivot. But she got over her fear, her lizard brain of what that meant. There was a little bit in the beginning and then she jumped on board, but we had to do some work in the beginning around why we were resisting the change, right? And once she did that, she overcame it. I totally went off on a tangent here, Carolyn, but I really strongly believe that oftentimes it's this first step that is hard for people. So, but I want to go back to what Mia and Kirby and Carolyn, you said, and then I'll get back to the stories I want to share. Let me look at the time here. Mia said, learning smart tactics from other industries and sharing them with the team. People love analogies and stories, Carolyn. So one tool that Mia is referring to here is sharing what you should do by sharing examples of what other people have done. We're humans, we're storytellers. We receive information by stories. Sometimes the best people to get the way to people to see that they need to change is by sharing what somebody else is doing. Kirby says Bernard. Yes, Kirby. So Bernard, for those of you who don't know, is my lizard brain. I name him because then I can talk to him and be like, not today, Bernard. I don't think so. So managing your lizard brain is about understanding your lizard brain. And Carolyn, I would suspect there's a lot of that going on. So Carolyn says their management sees things as very black or white, and I live in a gray space. Yeah. So when you live in a gray space and you're able to pivot and adapt and be more fluid, and the people around you are very this or that, you got to think about walking them into the gray in baby steps. And here's the other thing, Carolyn, this is the money right here. You got to figure out how to make some of that gray black and white for them so that they can see it in a way that they can hear it. One of the things that I've discovered in this, particularly in the space of innovation, where I'm always about change and adapting and pivoting, is I got to back it up and not explain things in a way that makes sense to me in my gray area, Carolyn, because I live there too, but also in an area in a way that makes sense to them. Okay, so here are the 5 ways, right? We got to, if we really want to be future ready, we have got to be able to pivot all the time, right? We got to make that an actual skill that we are darn good at. We want to think 1 and 10 steps ahead. We want to keep our antennas up, look for those nuggets, those insights, those best practices. We want to be enablers of innovation, so we become that hub that becomes invaluable. And we want to be in a relationship with reality so we can move forward in a way that's actually going to work. I want to share, I know we're way over, I want to share 3 quick stories with you. Oh, I didn't get my animations right. Okay, the first one is, there's a company in Israel that does airline food, and you better believe they got decimated, but a couple of people on their teams realized they could pivot fast. They had their antennas up. They realized a new opportunity, a new challenge they could solve, and that is cheap boxed meals. So now they're selling them in kiosks on the street. All that food they had in their warehouse, right? But that's pivoting, that's keeping your antennas up, that's being future ready and going where the market is going. The second one here is, the first one is someone trying to, you can't really see because I have that thing up, but is trying to push an elevator button with their elbow. I don't know if you've seen this amazing keychain. I have it. Oh, I have my keys on the other side of the room, right? That goes on your thing. What a great way of going, you know what, this is going to last. If I looked 1 and 10 steps ahead, this is lasting. So I'm going to create a product that speaks to that. This keychain has sold millions. And then the third one is telehealth, right? Oh, my video keeps going. Telehealth is now a big thing, but you better believe in the very beginning, telehealth was something that people were, some medical practitioners were kind of on, kind of not on. And some were like, you know what? I'm looking around here. I'm going to go back to my 5 really quickly. I'm going to be that enabler. We're going to pivot. We're looking 1 and 10 steps ahead. We are in a relationship with reality. And those that have dialed up telehealth have actually done really well to compensate for the revenue for patients not coming in. I have several colleagues who own medical practices, and they will tell you that telehealth has made the world of difference for the ones that invested in it in the beginning because they were future ready. Okay, I am going to unshare my slide, my screen. Here's what I want to know from you. I think it's just me now. Okay. Kirby, I agree with you. Exposing yourself to new things, right? Why does my lizard brain have a male name? You know, I don't know. In all honesty, it just kind of spoke to me. One day he was Bernard, and that was that. All right, here's what I want to know. What are you going to do to future ready yourself? You've seen the 5. If you start doing these things every single day, you will be future ready. You'll be that invaluable, proactive person that's moving everybody forward. You'll be the one that not only gets you to the future, but creates a future that's actually viable and it works. What are the ones that you're going to do? And if you need me to put that slide back up so you can screenshot it, go ahead and let me know. You know I love sharing. What are you doing to be future ready? Before we log off, that's what I want to know. What are we doing to be future ready? What are we doing to make pivot a skill? Aside from being here, right, on the burst of innovation. That's absolutely one of them. That was such great brainstorming today, by the way. Thank you, Mia and Kirby, for typing with Carolyn. Carolyn, I really hope that helped you. What are you doing to be future ready? Kirby says, to continue to develop these skills. Yes, Kirby, all of them. Let me know which one kind of stood out to you as like, oh, I really should probably work on that one. I think we're all somewhat good at some, really good at some, and maybe need to just develop some others. The beauty is all of those 5 we can do. Yes, rearrange and pivot skills is in my wheelhouse. Totally, Mia, totally. And I think for you, the bringing to the clients the 1 and the 10 step ahead, which you probably already do, this is really a lesson for all of us, really helps you and then helps your clients be future ready. And, you know, now that I think about it, I think that's a question I'm going to really add to my team every time we talk is like, all right, what are we doing next? And how does that future ready us? Like, what's the 10th step of that? Okay, hold on. Woo! Yes, let me get the screen up. Worked my strong suits. Yes. You're welcome, Carolyn, for all the comments. Isn't it a great group? Amazing. Kirby says one place is an enabler. Yeah, here, I'm putting up my screen for you right now. The best leaders of innovation don't do innovation, they enable others. It's an important distinction. Oh, sorry. Always takes a second. Hold up. Sorry, Paul. I'll get it there in a second. There you go. It's up. Feel free to take that picture. Christine says, hey, Christine. Christine says, I do the 1 step and the 10 step ahead, but sometimes it is viewed by my colleagues as making something too big. Will you tell me what you mean by that is too big? I want to understand what that means. And I'll stay on for another couple minutes and I'll answer that. All right, get that screenshot. I know if you've got to drop off, you certainly can, but I'm here for you, so I'm going to stay a minute. Oh, thinking too far ahead. Okay, that's interesting. So give me some of the comments they say. Is it like, we don't need to worry about that yet? Interesting. Okay, so here's what I'd say, Christine, the thing, and by the way, we have an innovation jam session coming up on Wednesday. I might want to dig into how that's being presented in a way that maybe we need to just connect the dots a little bit more for them, the 1 step and the 10 step. It could also be a language thing, Christine. So here's a suggestion that I might have without knowing more about the details, but I've seen this work when you're trying to kind of get them to take the next step, but you want to make sure we're right? You're being future ready. So number 1 is to position it that way. Here's what we need to do next, and here's how it allows us to be future ready down the road. That language in itself might change how they view it. Here's what we need to do next, and here's how this today is going to help us be future ready tomorrow. Because that's also correct me if I'm wrong, but when I hear that phrase, I'm like, yeah, we need to be future ready. We need to make sure that we're ready for whatever comes next, right? Nobody kind of says no to being future ready. The second thing I might say is, here's what we need to do now. Hold on, let me think about this for a second. I might ask them a question. How do you envision what we're doing now impacting our ability to be future ready? How is what we're doing now, how is this step going to positively impact what we do next? Or even making a statement like, I think this step will help us, will make it easier when we get to blank. So instead of like forcing step 1 and step 10, I might talk about how step 1 impacts positively step 10. Oh, that was a good one, Christine. Thanks for that. I'm going to think even more deeply on that one. Okay, so Mia said, one of my clients said, we're not ready, still too risky to deploy travel-related marketing campaigns because of COVID. Yeah, I was trying to future ready the client for 2021. Yeah, I knew you meant COVID. Yeah, isn't that interesting, Mia? Like people are afraid to even, here's the deal. And I think you know this, they're afraid because it's so up and down that nobody knows what's going to happen. So the idea of that is just frightening, right? Interestingly, I had a company come to me recently and say, we'd like to talk to you about these type of ads. And I said something not quite the same, but I said, well, we're not even there yet. And they said, right, but we want you to be ready so that we can deploy this like the minute it happens, right? Yeah, first to market, exactly. So the minute your antennas are up and you get the nuggets of things are going back, that you're the ones ready. They had to really position it to me as, we want this in the can for you. So when the time comes, we're ready to pull the trigger and we're suddenly not behind because everybody else has moved forward before us. But they really had to show me that it was less about, I'm agreeing to that strategy right now because I couldn't wrap my head around it, and more about having an option, right? Like different color pens, having the red or the green so that when those antennas are up and the nuggets are out, that I can pick the one I want that's ready for my customer in my marketplace. Oh my gosh. Okay. You all are so amazing. And Mia, I want you to want them to be first to market, and I want them to be first to market too, because first wins. It's not always better. It's often first to market that wins. There's a million case studies of that, actually. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, for those of you who are in the membership tribe, we have an innovation jam session on Wednesday. I just emailed you the link to register. We got 90 minutes of rolling up our sleeves and digging into this and putting more tools in our toolbox and Q&A. So for those of you who are not in the tribe, but you come to the 10-minute burst, we will not have this Wednesday because I will be in the tribe with them at LaunchStreet, right? It's a location almost. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know this is a little bit of a twist in how in kind of some of the stuff I talk about, but I really wanted us to connect that future ready isn't just about prediction. It is about what we do today and our ability to innovate and adapt. That's actually what makes us future ready. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. So appreciate all of you. Hopefully you got a picture of the slide. I know somebody, Brian, you had asked me about it. Brian, sorry, I said Paul earlier, my apologies. Thank you for being here. See you all next week. And some of you I'll see Wednesday. Christine, no worry. We'll get you on the replay. Yeah, Mia, you'd be awesome too. Okay. Boop.